The smell of recycled air filled the observation deck as Nira pressed her delicate fingers against the transparent wall. Stars stretched endlessly before her, but her mind focused on the small blue planet rotating on the holographic display behind her. Earth. The word itself sounded harsh in her native language. Professor Quillen clicked his mandibles together, a gesture that meant he was pleased. His 6 eyes scanned the group of students who had volunteered for this cultural exchange program. Each one represented a different world, a different evolution, a different way of seeing the universe. They all shared one thing, though: curiosity about the newest species to join the galactic community. Rolf leaned back in his chair, his muscular frame taking up more space than necessary. His species had evolved as apex predators on a world with minimal threats. He found the whole situation amusing. Humans were supposed to be dangerous. They looked soft in the videos. No natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs, just pale skin and forward-facing eyes. Lysa's bioluminescent patterns flickered nervously across her aquatic skin. She kept her breathing apparatus close, even though the station's atmosphere was perfectly balanced for her biology. The data scrolling across her personal screen troubled her deeply. Earth's atmospheric pressure alone would feel like being crushed, and the humans just walked around in it like nothing was wrong. Dax stood motionless near the corner, his crystalline body reflecting the starlight in rainbow patterns. Silicon-based life was rare in the galaxy, and he had learned to observe more than speak. The readings he had compiled on Earth made no sense. The temperature swings between day and night could shatter his home crystal formations, yet Earth had liquid water oceans. The physics seemed impossible. Professor Quillen activated the main display. Earth materialized above them, rotating slowly. Clouds swirled across its surface in chaotic patterns. The professor began his lecture with clinical precision. Class 12 Deathworld. Gravity 1.3 times standard. Atmospheric oxygen levels toxic to 40% of known species. Extreme temperature variations. Violent weather systems including electrical storms, rotating wind columns, and frozen water precipitation. Dangerous megafauna. Aggressive microorganisms. Toxic plant life evolved as chemical warfare. The list continued for several minutes. Nira felt her stomach twist. Her homeworld was classified as Class 2, minimal predators, stable climate, gentle rains that nourished instead of destroyed. She had signed up for this program to expand her understanding of the universe. Now she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The door to the observation deck opened with a soft hiss. A human female entered, smiling widely. She wore simple clothing that seemed inadequate for protection. No armor, no environmental suit, just fabric and confidence. "Hello, everyone. I am Tara Booth, your human liaison. I am so excited to meet you all." Her voice carried warmth that seemed genuine. Nira noticed the human had no visible weapons, no defensive postures. She moved through the room like someone visiting a garden, not a group of aliens who could be potential threats. Tara began explaining the itinerary. They would travel to Earth within 2 standard cycles. The destination would be her family's farm in a region called Montana. She described it as a gentle introduction to Earth life. Rolling hills, fresh air, home-cooked meals, meeting her family. Rolf interrupted with a question that had been bothering him. "The data shows humans evolved as persistence hunters. Your species literally chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. How is that possible?" Tara laughed, a sound that confused several students who interpreted it as a threat display. "Oh, we are pretty good at running long distances. My little brother runs marathons for fun. That is about 42 kilometers without stopping." The room fell silent. Lysa checked her translator, certain it had malfunctioned. 42 kilometers. Her species could barely manage 2 before needing rest. The human continued talking, oblivious to the growing concern in the room. She mentioned that her mother enjoyed gardening with roses, plants that grew thorns to protect themselves. She talked about the family dog, a creature bred from wolves over thousands of generations. She casually mentioned that last winter they had a bear visit the property, and her father had to scare it away. A bear. Dax quickly searched the galactic database. Bears were massive omnivorous predators weighing up to 300 kilograms with claws designed for ripping flesh. The human father had scared it away. Alone, without weapons mentioned. Professor Quillen asked about safety protocols. Tara seemed confused by the question. Safety protocols for what? The farm was perfectly safe. Sure, there were rattlesnakes in the area during summer, but you just watched where you stepped. The weather could get rough sometimes, but they had a good storm shelter. Mountain lions occasionally wandered through, but they mostly avoided humans. Nira felt faint. Rattlesnakes were venomous reptiles. Mountain lions were ambush predators. Rough weather apparently meant storms that could level buildings based on the data she was reading. This human considered all of this perfectly safe. Tara pulled up images of her home on the display. A wooden structure sat in a valley surrounded by mountains. The sky above showed thick clouds. Tall plants covered the landscape in every direction. To the humans, it probably looked peaceful. To the alien students, it looked like a survival scenario. The human explained they would spend 2 weeks on Earth, learning about human culture, experiencing daily life, understanding how humanity had developed. She promised it would be educational and fun. Her smile never wavered. Rolf studied the human more carefully now. She stood on 2 legs which seemed unstable. Her body appeared fragile. No natural defenses were visible, yet she showed no fear, no hesitation. She spoke of Deathworld conditions like someone describing a pleasant vacation. Professor Quillen dismissed the class, reminding them to complete their pre-departure medical checks. As the students filed out, Nira overheard Lysa talking to Dax. Maybe the classification is wrong. Maybe Earth is not as dangerous as the data suggests. Dax's crystalline structure flickered, his version of disagreement. Or maybe humans simply have no idea how dangerous their world really is. That thought followed Nira back to her quarters. She looked at the images of Earth again. Beautiful blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked so inviting from space. The data told a different story. A story of a world that killed without mercy. A world that forged its dominant species through endless trials. And in 2 cycles, she would be standing on its surface, breathing its volatile atmosphere, experiencing its crushing gravity, walking among creatures that considered bears and mountain lions to be minor inconveniences. Nira began packing her emergency supplies. Something told her she would need every single one. Turbulence shook the shuttle as it descended through Earth's atmosphere. Nira gripped her seat with both hands, her knuckles turning pale. The vessel pitched and rolled, buffeted by winds that Tara had described as normal. Through the viewport, she watched clouds race past in violent swirls. "This is your calm weather." Lysa's voice trembled as another jolt rattled their restraints. Tara looked up from her data pad, genuinely confused. "Oh, this is nothing. You should see it during monsoon season. The winds can get pretty strong then." Pretty strong. According to the shuttle's sensors, they were currently experiencing wind speeds that would qualify as a natural disaster on most civilized worlds. The human sat relaxed, scrolling through messages from her family. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer. Montana spread below them in shades of green and brown. Mountains rose like jagged teeth along the horizon. Rivers cut through valleys in twisted paths. It looked wild, untamed, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Landing gear deployed with a mechanical thunk. The shuttle settled onto a flat section of grass that Tara had called a nice clear field. The moment the engines powered down, Nira noticed something alarming. The plants outside had thorns. The entire field was covered in defensive spikes. "Are those weapons?" Dax asked, his crystalline form reflecting the afternoon sunlight. Tara glanced out the window. Oh, you mean the thistles? Yeah, they are a bit annoying. Dad has been trying to clear them out for years. They just keep growing back. They keep growing back. Hostile plant life that actively defended territory was considered a Class 7 hazard. The humans treated it like a gardening inconvenience. The shuttle door opened. Gravity hit Neera like a physical force. Her legs buckled slightly under the weight of her own body. The air tasted strange, too thick, too rich. Each breath felt like drinking instead of inhaling. She took small steps down the ramp, her muscles straining against the increased weight. Rolf fared better with his dense bone structure, but even he moved carefully. Lysa deployed her support exoskeleton immediately, the mechanical frame whirring as it compensated for the crushing pressure. Dax's crystalline body actually seemed to appreciate the gravity, his structure more stable than on the station. A vehicle approached across the field, kicking up dust. It looked primitive compared to galactic standard transportation. No anti-gravity generators, no force fields, just metal and wheels rolling across uneven ground. 3 humans emerged. The male was older than Tara, his skin weathered and lined in ways that suggested extensive environmental exposure. The female had kind eyes and dirt on her hands. A small human child bounced beside them with alarming energy. Mom, Dad, Danny, meet our guests. Tara gestured to each alien in turn. Robert Booth extended his hand toward Neera. She stared at it, uncertain what to do. The database had mentioned this ritual, physical contact as greeting. On her world, touching strangers was reserved for threat displays or mating. She gingerly placed her hand in his. His grip was gentle, but she could feel the strength behind it. Calluses roughened his palm. These were hands that worked, hands that fought with the environment daily and won. Welcome to our home, and Booth smiled warmly. I hope you like beef stew. I made a big pot for dinner. Beef, Neera had researched this. Meat from cattle, large domesticated herbivores that humans kept in groups and eventually consumed. The casual mention of eating muscle tissue made her stomach turn. Danny stared up at them with wide eyes. Wow, you are all so different. Can you breathe our air okay? Do you need special water? Can I touch Dax? He looks like a giant diamond. The child spoke rapidly, questions tumbling over each other. Tara laughed and ruffled his hair. Give them space, Danny. They just got here. The family led them toward a large wooden structure. The house stood 2 stories tall, constructed from trees that had been cut and shaped. Neera found it strange that humans built homes from dead plants. On her world, they grew living structures that regenerated. Inside, the temperature was controlled but not perfectly. Variation existed from room to room. The furniture looked comfortable but showed wear. Pictures covered the walls, images of the family in various locations and situations. One photo caught Rolf's attention. It showed Robert standing next to a massive brown creature with long claws. Is that the bear you mentioned? Robert glanced at the picture. Oh yeah, that was a few winters back. She kept getting into our garbage. Had to relocate her about 30 kilometers away. Beautiful animal. Dangerous though. You have to respect them. You relocated a predator. Alone. Rolf's voice carried disbelief. Well, I had help from the wildlife services. They tranquilized her first. Still took 4 of us to get her in the transport. 4 humans to move an unconscious predator was apparently normal. Rolf began to reassess his earlier confidence about human fragility. Dinner proved to be another revelation. The dining table held more food than Neera thought possible for 5 humans to consume. Anne had prepared what she called a simple meal. Bread, salad, the mentioned stew, something called cornbread, fresh vegetables. Please help yourselves, there is plenty, Anne gestured to the spread. Neera took small portions, analyzing each item carefully. The bread contained wheat, a grain that could cause allergic reactions in many species. The salad included tomatoes, which were technically toxic to several galactic races. The stew smelled rich and complex, probably containing compounds her system had never encountered. She took a cautious bite of bread. The taste was pleasant, nutty, slightly sweet. Her digestive system processed it without immediate complaint. She tried a small piece of vegetable from the stew. Heat spread across her tongue, not painful but intense. Is something wrong? Anne noticed her reaction. Oh, maybe the pepper is too much. I can get you something milder. Pepper, a spice derived from plants that produced capsaicin as a defense mechanism against consumption. Humans added it to food deliberately, for flavor. It is fine. Nira managed, her throat burning slightly, just different from what I am used to. Danny was explaining his school day to Dax, who listened with patient interest. The boy talked about playground activities, showing scars on his knees from falling on concrete. Normal kid stuff, he said. Evidence of regular injury treated as routine childhood experience. Lysa struggled with the food entirely. Her aquatic digestion could not process most of it. Anne quickly prepared a simple broth, apologizing for not having better options. The human mother seemed genuinely distressed at not being able to feed her guest properly. After dinner, they moved to the living room. A large window showed the sun setting behind the mountains. Colors painted the sky in shades that Nira's homeworld never produced. Reds and oranges and purples layered across clouds. It is beautiful. Dax's voice held genuine appreciation. Robert nodded. Gets prettier every evening, never gets old. In the distance, animals called to each other. Haunting sounds that echoed across the valley. Nira tensed at the noise. Just coyotes. Tara noticed her reaction. They are harmless. Mostly they hunt rabbits and mice. Pack hunting predators were harmless. Nira added that to her growing list of human perspective differences. She watched darkness creep across the landscape, shadows pooling in valleys and stretching across fields. Tomorrow we will show you around the property. Danny's excitement was obvious. I can introduce you to the chickens and show you my tree house, and we can check the traps Dad set for gophers. Traps, tree houses, chickens. Each word represented another aspect of life on a death world that humans had normalized. Nira settled into the surprisingly comfortable couch, her body heavy with Earth's gravity. Outside, the coyotes continued their song. Inside, the Booth family talked and laughed, completely at ease. And somewhere between the two, Nira began to understand that safety was not about the absence of danger. For humans, it was about knowing how to live alongside it. Morning light crept through the curtains, pulling Nira from uneasy sleep. Her body ached in places she had never noticed before. Earth's gravity had worked on her muscles throughout the night, and now every movement felt labored. She heard sounds from downstairs, voices, the clatter of dishes, life beginning. The bathroom confused her initially. So many different fixtures, water that came out hot or cold at will, a mirror that showed her exhausted reflection. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, skin pale from stress, but she was alive. Day one on the death world complete. Breakfast was already prepared when she descended the stairs. Anne had made something called pancakes, flat circles of cooked batter topped with a sweet syrup that Danny enthusiastically poured over his stack. The smell was pleasant, rich and warm. Professor Quilm was already eating, his mandibles working carefully around a piece of fruit. He had adapted quickly, his insectoid biology more flexible than Nira expected. Lysa sat near the window, her breathing apparatus humming softly as she sipped a nutrient solution Anne had helped her prepare. Dax stood outside on the porch, his crystalline body catching the morning sunlight. He seemed fascinated by Earth's star, the way it painted colors across everything it touched. Rolf ate with surprising enthusiasm, apparently finding human food agreeable to his predator digestive system. So what would you like to see today? Robert asked between bites of eggs. We have got the livestock to check on. could walk up to the north pasture, or if you want something easier, we could just explore around the house and barn. Nira wanted to say she would prefer to stay inside where it was safe, but she had traveled across the galaxy for this experience. Cowering in the house would accomplish nothing. The North Pasture sounds educational. Professor Quillen spoke for the group. We should observe your agricultural practices. Robert smiled. All right then. Fair warning though, it is about a 5-kilometer walk. The terrain gets a bit rough in places. 5 kilometers. Lysa's patterns flickered with concern. In this gravity. Tara noticed the worry. We can take it slow. Rest whenever you need. There is no rush. They set out after breakfast, following a dirt path that wound through the property. Danny ran ahead, his small legs carrying him effortlessly across ground that made Nira struggle. The child had been born in this gravity. His bones and muscles knew nothing else. What exhausted her was his normal. The path led through a wooded area. Trees rose high above them, their branches creating patterns of light and shadow. Nira found them beautiful and terrifying. These were living things that had stood here for decades, maybe centuries, growing slowly, surviving winters and storms and droughts, permanent in a way that felt alien to her. A small creature darted across the path, brown fur, long ears, quick movements. Just a rabbit, Danny called back, we have tons of them. Rolf watched the creature disappear into the undergrowth. That is a prey animal. Yep, Robert confirmed. They breed like crazy. Have to keep the population controlled or they eat everything in the garden. Your prey animals reproduce faster than you can hunt them. Rolf's voice carried a note of respect. No wonder you developed persistence hunting. The path climbed upward. Nira's legs burned with effort. Her breathing came faster, pulling in Earth's thick air. Sweat formed on her skin, her body's attempt to cool itself. The biological response fascinated and disturbed her. Her species did not sweat. They regulated temperature through other means. But here, her body adapted, doing what it needed to survive. They paused at a rocky outcrop. The view spread before them in panoramic detail. Valley below, mountains beyond, sky stretching endlessly overhead. It was vast in a way that made Nira feel small. Beautiful is not it. Anne stood beside her, not even breathing hard from the climb. It is overwhelming, Nira admitted. I suppose it would be coming from a space station. Anne's voice was gentle, but you get used to it. The bigness, the wildness, it becomes home. Movement caught Dax's attention. Large animals grazed in the valley below, brown and black bodies against green grass. He counted at least 30. Those are our cattle, Robert pointed. We run about 100 head on this property. They are pretty much free range. We round them up a few times a year for health checks and such. You let prey animals roam freely. Professor Quillen's confusion was evident. What stops predators from taking them? Well, we do lose some occasionally. Mountain lions get one now and then, but mostly the cattle can defend themselves. Full-grown cow can weigh over 600 kilograms. They have horns. They herd together. Most predators do not want to risk injury for a meal. Nira did the math. 600 kilograms, in Earth gravity. These were not prey animals. These were mobile fortresses that humans kept for food. The scale of it astounded her. Danny climbed onto a large rock, standing at its peak with his arms spread wide. Look at me, I am the king of the mountain. Careful, Lysa's patterns flashed warning. That is not safe. He is fine, Tara assured her. Danny knows how to climb. He has been doing it since he could walk. Since he could walk, parents on Nira's world would never allow such behavior. But here, risk was part of childhood, learning limits by testing them. A sound rolled across the valley, deep, powerful. Nira's instincts screamed danger. She turned, searching for the source. Thunder, Robert noted casually. Storm rolling in from the west. We should probably head back. Nira looked where he pointed. Dark clouds built on the horizon, their tops reaching high into the atmosphere. Lightning flickered within them, too distant to hear yet. The storm was massive. It would cover the entire valley. "How long do we have?" Professor Quillen asked, his scientific mind calculating distance and speed. Robert studied the sky with practiced eyes. "Maybe an hour, hour and a half if we are lucky, plenty of time to get back." They descended faster than they had climbed. Neera's legs shook with effort, gravity, and fatigue combining. She stumbled twice, catching herself on rocks and trees. Each time one of the humans was there, a steadying hand, a word of encouragement. They moved as a group, adjusting pace for the slowest member. The wind picked up as they reached the tree line. It rushed through branches, making them sway and creak. Neera had never experienced wind like this. On the station, air moved through controlled vents, predictable, measurable. This was chaos, raw force that pushed against her body. Rain started as they reached the house, large drops that struck with surprising impact. Within seconds, it became a downpour. Water fell from the sky in sheets, drumming against the roof and ground. Visibility dropped to mere meters. They huddled on the covered porch, watching the storm unleash itself. Lightning split the sky, followed by thunder that Neera felt in her chest. The storm was not just around them. It was above them, below them, surrounding them completely. Danny laughed with delight. "This is a good one." A good one. The child found joy in what Neera perceived as an attack by the planet itself. She realized something profound. Humans did not conquer Earth. They learned to dance with it, to find beauty in its violence, to thrive in conditions that should have destroyed them. The storm raged on, and inside the house, safe and dry, the Booth family prepared lunch. Just another day on the Deathworld they called home. 3 days into the exchange program, Neera woke to screaming. Her heart raced as she scrambled from bed, muscles protesting the sudden movement. The sound came from outside, high-pitched, distressed. She rushed to the window. In the yard below, Danny stood frozen. 10 meters away, a large canine creature emerged from the tree line. Its fur was grayish-brown, its eyes fixed on the child with predatory focus. The creature was bigger than the family dog, leaner, with a wildness that spoke of something untamed. Neera's database identified it instantly. Canis latrans, coyote, pack hunter, opportunistic predator, dangerous to small prey, including human children. She ran for the door, her mind screaming warnings. Where were the adults? Why was Danny alone? She had to do something. Her legs carried her down the stairs, each step jarring in the heavy gravity. She burst through the front door. "Danny, do not move," she called out, her voice breaking with fear. The child turned his head slightly. "It is okay, Neera, just stay calm." Stay calm. The prey was telling the rescuer to stay calm. Nothing made sense. The coyote took a step closer. Danny spread his arms wide, making himself bigger. He started shouting. Loud, aggressive sounds. The coyote paused, uncertain. Danny took a step forward. The coyote retreated slightly. "Get out of here," Danny yelled. "Go on, get." The coyote watched for another moment, then turned and trotted back into the trees. Casual, unhurried, as if it had simply decided the interaction was not worth its time. Robert appeared from the barn, a tool belt hanging from his waist. "Everything all right?" Coyote came pretty close. Danny reported, his voice completely normal. "I scared it off, though." "Good job. Remember what I told you. Make yourself big, make noise. They do not want trouble with humans." Neera stood trembling on the porch. Good job. The child had been in mortal danger and his father was proud. She looked at the tree line where the predator had disappeared. How was this normal? Tara emerged from the house, carrying a basket of laundry. "Oh, did I miss the excitement?" Danny encountered a coyote. Professor Quillen had observed from an upstairs window. He handled it well. He handled it well. An 8-year-old child successfully defended himself from a predator, and everyone treated it like passing a school exam. "Nira, you look pale." Tara set down the laundry. "Are you okay?" That was dangerous. The words came out sharper than intended. He could have been hurt, killed. Tara's expression softened with understanding. Coyotes almost never attack humans. They are actually pretty scared of us. Danny did exactly what he should do, made himself seem like too much trouble. Almost never. Nira focused on those words. You accept risk because it is unlikely, not because it is impossible. Well, yeah, Tara looked genuinely puzzled. I mean, you cannot eliminate all risk. That is just life. That is just life. On Nira's world, they eliminated risk wherever possible. Controlled environments, protected spaces, careful management of every variable. But humans lived differently. They calculated odds and accepted dangers that seemed reasonable to them. The rest of the day proved Tara's point repeatedly. Lysa discovered that the houseplants were mildly toxic. Anne explained that yes, many decorative plants were poisonous, but you just did not eat them. Simple rule. Obvious to humans. Horrifying to species that had never needed such rules. Rolf found Danny's collection of insect specimens. Dead beetles and butterflies pinned to boards with identification labels. The child collected things that could bite, sting, or poison. As a hobby, for fun. Dax spent an hour analyzing the soil composition in the garden. It contained bacteria, fungi, and microscopic organisms in quantities that would classify as contaminated on most worlds. Anne worked in it with bare hands, dirt under her fingernails. When asked about the health risks, she laughed. A little dirt is good for you. Builds up your immune system. Builds up your immune system. Humans deliberately exposed themselves to pathogens to make their bodies stronger. They turned biological warfare into preventive medicine. That afternoon, a neighbor visited. An elderly woman named Ruth who lived alone on an adjacent property. She brought fresh eggs and stayed for lunch. During conversation, she mentioned fighting off a raccoon that had gotten into her chicken coop. "Fought it off how?" Lysa asked carefully. "With a broom," Ruth said matter-of-factly. "You just have to be quick. They are mean little things when cornered, but they would rather run than fight." She was at least 70 Earth years old. She lived alone in the wilderness. She fought raccoons with cleaning tools, and she considered this unremarkable. Professor Quilm compiled notes throughout the day, his academic mind trying to categorize what they were learning. He called it survival normalization. Humans had lived with danger so long that they had recalibrated their entire threat assessment system. What other species saw as crisis, humans saw as Tuesday. Evening brought another lesson. Danny asked if Nira wanted to see something cool. Against her better judgment, she agreed. He led her to the barn where a cat had recently given birth. 5 tiny kittens nursed from their mother. "They are so cute," Danny whispered, crouching near the box where they nested. Nira's database provided information on cats, solitary hunters, obligate carnivores, domesticated from wild predators over thousands of years, kept in homes as companions despite retaining hunting instincts. "Can I hold one?" Nira asked, surprising herself. "Sure, but be gentle. Their eyes are not even open yet." She picked up a kitten carefully. It fit in her palm, warm and soft. Its tiny claws flexed against her skin, harmless now, but it would grow into a skilled killer of small prey. Humans kept these creatures in their homes, let them sleep in their beds, fed them and cared for them. The mother cat watched Nira with alert eyes, ready to defend her young if needed. But she did not attack. She had learned that humans could be trusted, an evolutionary gamble that had paid off for her species. Protection and food in exchange for companionship. "Why do you keep predators as pets?" Nira asked softly, still holding the kitten. Danny considered the question seriously. "I guess because they are not really predators to us. They are just cats, friends, family." Friends, family. Humans had such flexible definitions of both. They built relationships across species barriers. They saw potential allies where other species saw only threats. That night, Nira sat on the porch with Dax. Stars spread overhead, crisp and clear in the mountain air. The same stars they could see from the space station, but somehow different viewed through Earth's atmosphere. The air added its own quality to the light. A slight shimmer, a depth. I am beginning to understand something. Dax's voice resonated softly. Humans do not survive despite Earth being dangerous. They survive because it is dangerous. Nira turned the thought over in her mind, the constant challenges, the endless adaptation required. It had shaped humanity at every level, physically, mentally, culturally. They had become resilient because anything less meant extinction. Their compassion comes from the same place, Nira added. When everyone faces danger, everyone needs help sometimes. Community becomes survival strategy. Dax's crystalline structure caught moonlight, scattering it in geometric patterns. We classify worlds by how dangerous they are to us, but maybe we should classify them by what they create. Earth did not create warriors. It created survivors who learned that taking care of each other was how you made it through. The coyotes called in the distance, their song echoing across the valley. Inside the house, the Booth family settled in for the night. Lights clicked off one by one, the rhythm of domestic life on a death world. Nira felt her perspective shifting. The fear remained, but understanding was growing alongside it. Earth was dangerous. That was objective fact, but danger and hostility were not the same thing. Earth was not trying to kill humans, it was just being itself. And humans had learned to be themselves in response. Adaptable, resilient, kind. Tomorrow they would explore more, see more, learn more. But tonight, sitting under alien stars on a world that should have been impossible, Nira felt something unexpected. Gratitude for the chance to witness it. The weather alert came during breakfast on their 8th day. Robert checked his communication device and frowned slightly. Anne looked over his shoulder, reading the message. "How bad?" she asked quietly. "Pretty bad." Robert showed her the screen. Severe thunderstorm warning, possible tornadoes, high winds, heavy rain, could last most of the day. Nira's translator picked up the conversation. Tornadoes, she had researched these. Rotating columns of air with wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. They destroyed everything in their path. Buildings, trees, vehicles, lives. "We are going to need to prepare." Anne stood, already making mental lists. "Professor Quilm, I think it might be best if you and your students stay close to the house today. We have a storm shelter in the basement just in case." Just in case. Casual words for catastrophic possibility. The family moved with practiced efficiency. Robert went outside to secure equipment and move vehicles into the barn. Tara began checking emergency supplies, flashlights, batteries, first aid kit, water, food, radio. Danny helped bring firewood into the covered porch area. Nira watched the organized chaos with growing anxiety. This was a drill they had clearly run before, multiple times. Storm preparation was a regular part of life here. "Have you experienced tornadoes before?" Lysa asked, her bioluminescent patterns flickering rapid concern. "A few," Tara answered while testing flashlights. "One came pretty close about 5 years ago. Took out the old chicken coop. We rebuilt it stronger." Took out the chicken coop. Structure destroyed, rebuilt, moved on. Nira struggled to process the casual acceptance. The sky darkened as morning progressed. Clouds built in towering formations, their tops flattening against some invisible ceiling. The air felt thick, heavy, pressure building toward release. Wind picked up, making trees sway in unnatural patterns. "We should probably head down to the basement soon." Robert came back inside, his hair wind-blown. "Storm is moving faster than they predicted." The basement was finished and comfortable. Couches, shelves stocked with supplies, a television connected to weather monitoring systems. This was not just a shelter. This was a living space designed for extended occupation during emergencies. Anne brought down blankets and pillows, just in case we need to stay down here for a while. She said it like they might be watching a long movie, not hiding from planetary violence. The first serious gust hit the house with physical force. The building creaked, windows rattled. Nira grabbed the couch armrest, her knuckles white. Dax positioned himself in a corner where his crystalline structure would be protected from potential debris. Rolf's predator instincts made him restless, packing the confined space. Danny sat on the floor with a coloring book, completely unconcerned. He hummed while selecting crayons. An 8-year-old child, calm during a natural disaster. The contrast was almost absurd. Professor Quillen monitored the weather display with academic fascination. The storm system was enormous. It covered hundreds of square kilometers, multiple rotating cells within the larger structure. The data was beautiful in a terrifying way. Why do you stay here? Lysa's question emerged suddenly. You have space travel. You could colonize calm worlds, garden worlds with gentle weather and minimal threats. Why remain on a planet that tries to kill you? The room went quiet. Even Danny stopped coloring, looking up at the adults. Robert considered the question seriously. I guess because Earth is not trying to kill us, it is just being Earth. The storms, the predators, the harsh seasons, that is just nature doing what nature does. And yeah, it is dangerous sometimes, but it is also beautiful. It is home. But home could be safer, Nira pressed. You could choose safety. Could we, though? Anne joined the conversation. I mean, we could move our bodies somewhere else. But would it be home? The soil I grew up planting in is here. The mountains I learned to climb are here. My grandparents are buried in the cemetery 5 kilometers down the road. You do not just transplant that. Thunder crashed overhead so loud it felt like the sky was tearing. Lightning followed immediately. Close, very close. The lights flickered but stayed on thanks to backup generators. Besides, Tara added, humans have never been good at choosing the easy path. We explore because it is hard. We climb mountains because they are there. We do things that scare us because that is how we grow. Earth made us like that. Rain hammered the house now, not individual drops but solid sheets of water. The sound was deafening. Wind howled around the structure, finding every gap to exploit. The whole building shook. The tornado siren activated. Its wail cut through the storm noise, a sound designed to trigger primal fear. It worked. That means rotation has been detected. Robert's voice stayed calm. We are safe down here. The house has been through worse. Has been through worse. The structure they huddled in had survived previous tornadoes, and they trusted it to survive again. Danny climbed into his mother's lap, not frightened but seeking comfort. Anne wrapped her arms around him, her calm presence anchoring him. The family drew together naturally, physical closeness during crisis. Professor Quillen observed this too. The human response to danger included seeking community, connection. They did not isolate, they came together. The storm reached its peak. Wind screamed, rain battered, thunder and lightning created continuous symphony of violence. The house groaned under the assault but held, built by humans who understood their world, who knew what forces it could unleash, who engineered accordingly. Nira found herself sitting closer to Dax and Lysa, her own instinct for community emerging. Rolf had stopped packing, settling on the floor near Professor Quillen. Even different species they drew together, safety in numbers, comfort in presence. And then gradually the storm began to ease. The wind dropped from shriek to howl to whisper. Rain lightened. Thunder grew distant. The pressure that had pressed against them released. I think we are through the worst of it. Robert checked the weather display. Storm is moving east. Should be clear in about an hour. They emerged from the basement to assess damage. Tree branches littered the yard. Patio furniture had been scattered. The garden was flattened. One section of fence had blown over, but the house stood. The barn stood. The essential structures remained. Could have been worse, Robert assessed. We got lucky. Lucky? Nira looked at the destruction and heard gratitude. Human perspective remained alien even after 8 days of immersion. The family began cleanup immediately, raking branches, uprighting furniture, checking on animals. The aliens helped where they could, though Earth's gravity made every task exhausting. Neighbors arrived within hours. No one had called them. They just came, bringing chainsaws for downed trees, extra hands for heavy lifting, food for shared meals, community responding to crisis automatically. Ruth appeared with her truck ready to haul debris. Her property had minimal damage, but she came to help anyway, because that was what neighbors did, what humans did. Nira worked alongside Tara, moving smaller branches to a burn pile. Her muscles screamed protest, but she continued. Something about the communal effort felt important, necessary. "You know what I am learning," she said to Tara. "Earth did not just make humans tough, it made you cooperative. Dangerous worlds require dangerous responses, but also supportive ones." Tara smiled, wiping sweat from her forehead. "That is a pretty good observation. Survival is easier together, always has been." By evening, most of the major cleanup was complete. The Booth property looked battered but functional. Fence repairs could wait. The garden would recover. Life would continue. They ate dinner on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed impossible after the day's violence. The same sky that had threatened now offered beauty. Earth contained both. Humans accepted both. Tomorrow would bring more lessons, more revelations. But tonight, Nira sat among humans and fellow aliens, sharing food and stories, finding community on a Deathworld. And slowly, very slowly, beginning to understand what made it home. 2 weeks passed faster than Nira had thought possible. The final day arrived with mixed emotions. She had survived Earth, more than survived. She had experienced it, understood it in ways that data could never convey. The shuttle would arrive at midday to transport them back to the station. From there, they would return to their respective homeworlds. Professor Quillen had already compiled preliminary reports. The formal presentation to the Galactic University would come later, but the core findings were clear. Earth was everything the classification said it was. Class 12 Deathworld, dangerous, hostile, unforgiving. But those words missed something crucial, something that could only be understood by standing on its surface, breathing its air, meeting its dominant species. Anne prepared a final breakfast, larger than usual, pancakes and eggs and bacon and fresh fruit. Danny insisted on helping, though his version of helping involved more eating than cooking. Tara set the table while Robert checked the weather one last time. Clear skies, perfect conditions for departure. "So what will you tell the university?" Robert asked as they ate. "About Earth, about us." Professor Quillen clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The truth, that human development cannot be understood without understanding your planet. Every aspect of your species reflects adaptation to this environment." Lysa's patterns flickered in agreement. Your persistence hunting required endurance, which required efficient cooling through sweat, which required bare skin, which required clothing for protection, which required tools, which required intelligence. Everything connects. "And your cooperation," Nira added. "Dangerous environments require strong communities. Humans who worked together survived. Those who did not perished. Natural selection favored social bonds." Rolf had his own observation. "You have no natural weapons, no claws or fangs or venom, so you made tools, and tools required hands, and hands required standing upright. An upright stance freed your hands for other tasks. Your weakness became your greatest strength." Dax's crystalline structure caught morning light. You learned to read your environment, weather patterns, animal behavior, plant cycles, seasonal changes. Earth required prediction and planning, so you developed complex cognition. Danny listened with obvious pride. So we are special because Earth is hard. You are remarkable because you learned to thrive where thriving should have been impossible. Professor Quillen corrected gently. Many species have faced harsh worlds. Most went extinct or never evolved sentience. Humans did both. That is extraordinary. Breakfast finished, they walked the property one final time. Nira wanted to remember details. The way morning mist settled in valleys, how dew clung to grass, the particular quality of light through Montana air. These things had no equivalent on her homeworld. They visited the cattle in the north pasture, massive creatures that chewed grass and watched the visitors with mild curiosity. Danny explained their names and personalities like they were family members. To him, they were, even the ones eventually destined for consumption. Life and death coexisted without contradiction. The chickens provided eggs for breakfast. The garden grew vegetables despite regular assault by insects and weather. The barn stored equipment that broke and was repaired and broke again. Everything was cyclical, sustainable, adapted to reality. Ruth drove up mid-morning bringing cookies for the journey. She hugged each alien student, her elderly human strength surprising them. Take care up there in the stars, and come back sometime. You are always welcome. Nira realized she would miss this. Not just the family, but the place, the smells, the sounds, the feeling of weight pressing down from sky and gravity simultaneously. Earth had gotten into her, changed her perspective in ways that would take time to fully process. The shuttle appeared as a dot in the sky, growing larger as it descended, sleek, technological, safe, everything Earth was not. The contrast felt jarring now. The shuttle belonged to the sterile predictability of space. Earth belonged to chaos and beauty intertwined. Landing thrusters fired, scorching the grass. The field that had been their arrival point 2 weeks ago. It looked different now. Not threatening, just grass, with thorns that grew back stubbornly, because that was what grass did here. Final goodbyes proved harder than Nira expected. Anne hugged her, human warmth and strength combined. Robert shook hands with firm grip. Tara promised to stay in touch through galactic communication networks. Danny tried not to cry and failed, hugging Dax despite the crystalline alien's hard surface. Safe travels. Anne smiled through her own emotion, and thank you for taking the time to understand. Not everyone would. The shuttle interior felt wrong. Too clean, too controlled, temperature perfectly regulated, atmosphere balanced, gravity adjusted to standard, comfortable, lifeless. As they lifted off, Nira pressed against the viewport. The booth property shrank below them, house and barn and fields becoming patches of color. The mountains remained, but distance diminished them. The clouds were just clouds again, not weather systems to be monitored and prepared for. Earth curved beneath them as they climbed. Blue oceans, green and brown continents, white ice caps at poles, beautiful, deadly. Home to billions of humans who saw it as simply home. Professor Quillen began drafting the official report. His academic language tried to capture what they had learned, but Nira knew words would fail. How did you explain the feeling of gravity pressing down, the taste of air too thick, the sound of thunder close enough to feel, the sight of a child fearlessly facing a predator? What will you recommend? Lysa asked, about Earth's classification. Professor Quillen looked up from his work. I will recommend we create a new category. Deathworld is accurate for the physical conditions, but it fails to account for what those conditions create. Earth is not just dangerous, it is transformative. Any species that evolves there will be remarkable, because anything less cannot survive. Rolf studied the planet falling away behind them, and the humans. What will you say about them? That they are exactly what Earth would create, tough enough to endure, smart enough to adapt, cooperative enough to support each other, curious enough to keep exploring despite risks, and somehow, impossibly, kind despite all of it, maybe because of all of it. Neera thought about that. The kindness had surprised her most. Anne apologizing for food that could not meet everyone's needs. Robert stopping work to explain things patiently. Tara's constant concern for their comfort. Danny sharing his treasures without hesitation. Ruth driving over with cookies. Neighbors appearing to help after the storm. Humans had learned that survival required community. That strength meant helping others. That today's ally might be tomorrow's lifeline. Earth had taught them that lesson over thousands of generations. It was embedded in their culture, their instincts, their hearts. The stars emerged as they left atmosphere, familiar, cold, clean, safe. But also less alive, less vibrant, less real. I want to return, Neera said suddenly. Someday, when I have learned more, prepared better, I want to see more of Earth. Professor Quillen's mandibles clicked approval. That is the appropriate response. One visit cannot capture a world's complexity, especially not Earth. The shuttle engaged faster drives, carrying them away from humanity's homeworld. But it could not carry them away from what they had learned. That would stay with them forever. Neera looked at her fellow students. Lysa, Rolf, Dax. They had started as curious aliens. They were leaving as something different, not human, but changed by humans, by Earth, by the experience of witnessing how life adapted to the impossible and made it ordinary. The Galactic University would receive their reports. Other species would read about Earth. Some would visit. Some would never understand. Data could not convey the complete truth. But Neera would try. She would write about gravity and storms and predators and thorny plants, about families who lived in valleys surrounded by danger and called it beautiful, about children who ran marathons and faced coyotes and colored during tornado warnings, about a species that chose to stay on a Deathworld because it was home. And maybe, just maybe, other species would learn what she had learned, that harsh conditions could create gentle souls, that danger could teach compassion, that the deadliest world in known space had produced the most remarkably kind species in the galaxy. Earth was a death world. The classification was accurate, but it was also incomplete, because Earth was home, and home was worth any risk.